guys, it's Machaela and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm kind of titling this video Birth Advice for First Time Moms, or what you need to know before going into labor and delivery and giving birth, as well as some steps, some stuff to kind of expect, like to have a plan before really going into labor and delivery. So let's just go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome if you're new here. I do videos focusing on beauty and lifestyle, and I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. My first piece of advice would be to not have a plan. You're there to have a baby. Babies are unpredictable. Labor and delivery is unpredictable. You never know what could happen. And most of the time it's not going to work out the way you planned for anyways. I mean, you know, there's a possibility that if you're planning on getting an epidural, but you get there and maybe it's too late to get the epidural, or maybe something with your body just doesn't work well with the epidural, or maybe you get it and it just doesn't work out the way you would hope so. And also epidurals can get really weird sometimes. The first time when I had an epidural with my first, they messed up 3 times, and I had, like, it messed with my nerves. It was the weirdest feeling. So kind of getting the epidural is it's a weird feeling in itself. I mean, once I had it, life was great, at least in my experience, but it may not work out the way you would hope. You may feel the pain on one side but not the other. It just kind of depends on the person and the anesthesiologist giving you the epidural. So you don't want to, it's weird, and you just don't want to go in there with, like, I need this at this time, at this stage, and it's not going to work out. Also, a C-section is a very real possibility. It is possible that you can go in expecting to have a normal delivery and have to go in for an emergency C-sections. It happens all the time. I have family members who that has happened to, and they were planning on having just a normal birth, and that's okay. I've never had one. Personally, I'm not scared of it if it were to happen. I'm more scared of the baby being in distress. I'm not scared if I have to go. I'm not scared of having a C-section. I'm scared of something happening to the baby. So really, I would hope that my doctors, well before anything does happen, or at the first signs of any kind of distress, before it gets too bad, that they would wheel me off for a C-section, because I'm not scared of surgery. I'm scared of something happening to my baby. When you are in the mode of labor and delivery, you just gotta trust your doctors. They're gonna do what's best for you. Trust your spouse or your support person or whoever's with you, because they are going to be your biggest advocate for you in the labor and delivery room. And that leads me into my second point, and that leads me into point number 2. Be open with what you do want. I know I just said do not have a plan, and I do stand by that. However, you also know what you want. Kind of the roundabout, like, I would like this, I would like that, but I'm kind of worried about this and that. So know what you want, but don't plan on it happening, or don't plan on it having to happen, would be the best way of saying it. So know what you want. Do you want a water birth? Do you want a home birth? Do you want an epidural, or do you want to try really hard to stay away from the epidural? For me, the epidural came in with my first. My plan was I want the epidural when I can no longer stand the thought of not having a giant needle or my nerves messed with, when I'm in so much pain that I just don't care and I just want it to go away. For my first, that was at 3 centimeters, but I was also induced with my first. With my second, I got to the hospital begging for the epidural, and they told me it was time to push. So that, if you are planning on having an epidural, you might want to make sure that you're going to the hospital just a little bit earlier than what they say. I waited till the last minute with my second, but again, just, are you scared of it? Are you not? Or are you really determined to have the child all natural? And again, that goes back to being open. That might not work out for you. You might just get there and just say, I don't care anymore. Would you rather have an episiotomy? And for those who don't know what that is, it's where they cut you to make room for the baby. Or would you rather them use the vacuum? I'm sure there are cases where they have to do both. I've never had, I almost had to have the vacuum done with my first. I did end up tearing, or I had an episiotomy with my first. I remember begging them kind of in the moment. They're like, oh, we might need to get the vacuum out. And I'm like, no, cut me. Like, just cut me, please. But, you know, and be vocal about that. Like, I do not want the vacuum on my kids. I'm like, I don't care how far you have to cut me. Just cut me and get my baby out safely without that vacuum, because that contraption scares me. Who do you want in the room with you? Do you want your spouse, your mom? I know these days, most, at least from my most updated knowledge, they are letting one support person in the room. I believe that some hospitals are letting two. I think that just depends on where you're at. So know who you want in the room, know who you want to stay away from, know kind of what you want in the moment. Nurses and doctors, unfortunately, we don't have much say, but if there is someone who is really making you uncomfortable, feel free to be vocal about that. But who is it that's coming with you and is going to actually be there during that time? Discuss with your doctor or your midwife all of the possibilities of giving birth, what the options are, what's going to happen if this doesn't go right. Just have that discussion with them so you know as much information as possible before you give birth. Be open to having an induction if you need one, if you go past a certain point, but also be firm to wait it out as long as possible. I know in my experience, I have had them pushing inductions, and I feel like more and more these days they are pushing inductions. So be open to having an induction if you need it. If you go past a certain point, it's no longer necessarily deemed safe. So be open, but also be vocal if you want to wait it out as long as possible. If you want your baby to come naturally, then be vocal about that. I know for me in past experiences, they did push inductions. With my first one, it was an emergency induction because my amniotic fluid levels are low, so I had to be open for that. Honestly, I didn't really think about it till the time came. It really didn't bother me when it happened. But with my second, they did push an induction, even though I was already in labor at the time and I knew it, and I know they knew it, but they still tried to push on me when I wasn't quite to like that 41-week mark. So really, you just gotta be firm and say, no, I wanna wait it out as long as possible, you know, like between 41 and 42 weeks. I feel like they're pushing them more and more just because of I really don't know. I just feel like they're pushing them more and more earlier, and I think it's just the times that we live in, and honestly, for me, that doesn't work out well. That's not okay with me. So I do find that you do have to be more firm, and you're like, hey, I want to wait it out until it is no longer safe. I don't just want to get an induction just for the sake of it. Do you want pictures? Do you want videos? Yes, no, how much, what do you want? For me, I would love to get as much pictures and videos as I can. I did great with my first. I loved getting all those pictures. I got pictures with my second. This time around, just being me and my husband, I think that it might be a little bit harder, but I would like to vlog as much as we can. I would like to get as many pictures as possible. If I can get the nurses or a nurse or somebody to maybe possibly do that for me just so I can have those, yes, I would like to. And that's one of those things where it's like, okay, even though you may not want it in the moment, you might want it outside of the moment and looking back on it. But again, if you don't, then that's completely up to you. But just know yes or no, and that's one of those things that I feel like is very much in our control. So yes or no, do you want it? Are there any nurses or doctors, again, that kind of concern you? Feel free to speak out about it. Go to somebody in charge, like a charge nurse, or just somebody who can lead you just to say, hey, I'm just uncomfortable with this. Do you have concerns about specific medications? Make them tell you every medication that they may be giving you. Maybe you're allergic to something. Make sure you know. Make sure you know the information. Make sure you're not just saying yes to anything. And make them tell you what it is they're giving you, what's in it, what the effects are of it. I understand that in emergency cases, they may not be able to vocalize everything. Like if you are having to get an emergency C-section, that's understandable if it's an emergency. But again, you're allowed to know things. You're allowed to know what's going on. You're allowed to know everything. And that is your support person's job. And again, have all of these discussions with your support person beforehand, because they are going to be your voice to the doctors, to the nurses, to everybody involved while you are giving birth. Another tip, have your bags packed. I do plan on doing a separate what's in my hospital bag video. If you'd like to see that, let me know. I'm personally planning on packing my bags between 32 and 34 weeks. If you are high risk, you might want to start doing it as early as the end of the second trimester, probably around like 28, 29 weeks. if you are high risk. But just have them packed, have them in the car. Same with the car seat, have it in the car ready to go well before that baby arrives, because you just never know what could happen. And again, leading into that next point, have a game plan. How far away do you live from the place of giving birth? How far away are you from the hospital or the birthing center, or are you just doing it at home? And in that case, how far away is your midwife to come and help you in that time? Know these things. What happens if you're out and about? Have these discussions with your support person. What happens if you're out and about and your water breaks, or if you or your spouse is at work, or your support person is at work? Who's going to take you in the hospital in different scenarios? You don't need your support person to be the one that has to drive you to the hospital. If you've got somebody who's close to you or close by that you trust enough to drive you to the hospital, just say, hey, my water broke, I need to get to the hospital, and my support person, in my case that'll be my husband, meeting me there. Childcare, who's watching the kids? What's the game plan to get the kids there on time? Are you going to have the kids go spend the night at their place the night before if you think you're in labor, or if you're being induced? Are you going to do it the night before? Are you going to wake them up and love on them the next morning and say goodbye to them? Who is it? Obviously this is totally an obvious one, of course, with the child care situation, but just make sure they have what they need and everything, and pack their bags too. When you're packing your hospital bag, pack their bags, because again, just like with last minute stuff, you're going to have to get them to their destination as well. Or maybe you have somebody, if you're by yourself at the time, have the child care, somebody from whoever's caring for your children, to come and just pick them up for you. Especially if you live far away. At what point do you choose to make that drive? My husband and I have discussed that plan already. We have a game plan in place. But you should know, because the rule is, I believe the rule is like 5 minutes of contractions for lasting 1 minute for 1 hour, or like 30 seconds for 1 hour, or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But if you live over an hour away from the hospital which you're giving birth at, you're probably gonna want to make sure that you at least head to the area of which you're staying, and maybe stay in a hotel for the night before, or walk around and do something fun for the last little bit, or just anything. But make sure you are in the area, especially if you live far away. If you live in town, honestly, follow that rule, just do what they tell you. But if you live farther away, you make sure you let your doctors know that and say, hey, this is how far away I am, how much extra time do I need to tack on to that? Because the last thing you want to do is be giving birth in your car on the way to the hospital, or hit traffic on your way to the hospital. I mean, I'm sure somebody would let you through if you just be like, hey, or if you need to call 911, don't call 911, but have a game plan. Because if you need to say, hey, once I start hitting the 10-minute mark or the 15-minute mark, we're gonna just head down to the area and spend the night somewhere if we need to, or go and kill time doing an activity that's labor inducive or something, I don't know. But just make sure you're counting in for that distance time, especially if you do live far away from the place of which you are actually giving birth. If you're home, again, make sure that your midwife, it has plenty of time to know how to get there, and of course they'll know what they need to do based on their profession and their knowledge of that, because I'm sure you're not the first time that's happened, so just make sure that everybody knows and you're just able to get to your location on time. Earlier is better than late. Get there earlier. Another thing, eat before you get to the hospital, especially if you're getting induced. I didn't eat with my first, it was an emergency induction, but I was told to eat, and by the time I got to eating, I didn't get to eat and I was starving the whole day. Luckily, nurses let me eat at the end of the day because I wasn't dilating, and that was like the best thing ever, but that's a whole different story. But eat light. Don't overstuff yourself. I actually did really good with my second. I actually had a Rubio shrimp burrito before I had her, but I only had half of one, and I had it earlier in the day, so I wasn't overly stuffed, even though that was a little bit of a heavier meal. I only ate half of it, so I didn't feel overstuffed by the time I actually got to giving birth, because like with everything else going on, the last thing you want to do is having stomach troubles, because you're already gonna have stomach troubles. I mean, you might just throw up when you're giving birth. I did, but just make sure that's just one less thing you're not having to deal with. Another thing is to focus on yourself and what you need to do. In the moment, it's about you, it's about giving, it's about the baby, it's about you giving birth to your baby and doing the most comfortable thing that you can do for you. Your support person is going to be your advocate for your doctors. That's where you need to have all these discussions beforehand. Your doctors, your nurses, they're all going to know what you need to do. Of course, you can be informed, but make sure that is your support person's job. Your support person will be your advocate, and they will know what's going on because it's about you and your baby. Everybody in the room is focused on you. Trust your doctors, trust your nurses. Everybody else, as far as family goes, whoever's in the room, your support person can handle that. You can inform your family afterwards. There's no rule in the book that says family and friends must know as you're in labor. If you can, great. If your support person is able to, great. But again, let them focus on you and you alone. They can all find out after the baby is born. As you are going into labor, say, hey, pray for me, we're having the baby. Or, hey, just a heads up, we're having the baby, not going to talk. Or make sure you're being vocal about your needs. Make sure that nobody's going to know exactly what you need unless you say something. If you need water, get a drink of water. If you need maybe something to eat because you're lightheaded, make sure you let them know that. Yes, your doctors and nurses are professionals. They know what you need, but they don't know every detail. So if you're thirsty, if you're lightheaded, if you're nauseous, if your stomach's upset, you make sure you let them know that, because they need to meet your needs in order for you to meet the needs of being able to have your baby. And be vocal about knowing what's going on. I hate it when doctors don't inform me about stuff. I know, like, if it's little things, they won't say too much, especially if it's not anything crazy to worry about, but at the same time, it's like, you see that look and you're like, well, what's going on? And I know they're not trying to worry you and scare you unless it's bad, unless, if they don't have to, which I can understand that, but still, if you have a right to know what's going on, especially when it comes to you and your child. You make sure that you're vocal about that stuff, and you make sure that your spouse is vocal about that stuff too, or your support person, or whoever's going to be with you. I mean, I know it's different for everyone, things are crazy, but you know what I mean. But they're going to be just as concerned about you and your baby as you are. And then another thing, going into my next point here, afterbirth is hard. In my experience, my afterbirth was a lot harder than giving birth. Although you've got like that crazy like ring of fire and all that stuff, and if you don't know what the ring of fire is, it's that intense, like fiery, burning, stabbing sensation that you get as you are pushing the baby out. It is not fun, but honestly, the afterbirth is even harder because now you've got the baby out. Now all the junk that's been inside, not junk, but all the stuff that sustained your baby that is inside of you is now coming out of you, and it's not pretty, and you may have to get stitches, and you're not going to be able to move for a while. Every muscle in your body just gave birth. I literally had a hernia in my eyeball after having my firstborn, because every muscle in my body was working itself to the max to have this baby. Even though I was induced and I had an epidural and I didn't feel all of it, I felt it afterwards. And with my second, I felt everything, and then everything afterwards. So it's hard. It's not easy. That fourth trimester is no joke. That afterbirth is no joke. Fourth trimester is probably a different story. And if you'd like a video on that, let me know. I've been through it a couple times, but it's going to be hard. You're not going to be able to move for a while, whether you have a C-section or you have a natural birth. Every muscle in your body, like, I was numb. Even after my natural birth, I was numb from the waist down because I just couldn't move, because I just did like this. I gave birth and it was crazy. And honestly, don't plan on sleeping much afterwards. I know you're exhausted, and I know, you just had a baby, but your child still needs you. Your child still needs to be held and loved on, and hopefully you guys don't have a NICU baby. Hopefully that everything goes smoothly, and I don't have to have a NICU baby. It's like one of my biggest fears right there. But if everything goes well, you're going to want to do skin to skin with your baby. You're going to want to bond with your baby. Your baby needs you. Your baby just went through a whole heck of a lot to come into this world, and they went from this cozy womb to this cold world, and the one thing they have is you to comfort them. They want to hear your heartbeat. They want to do skin to skin. They want that coziness and closest to you, because that is their comfort. So don't plan on sleeping much, and just hold the baby, and it's okay. You know what? You've got your husband. He's going to be bonding with the baby. Your support person's going to be there helping you out. Rest where you can, but really, and just to be raw and real here, don't plan on sleeping much ever again, actually. But get help afterwards, of course. Get the help that you need, especially if you are overtired. But while you're in the hospital there, you know, you have everybody taking care of you, but for yourself, you're going to, again, be focused on the baby and just enjoy that skin to skin. And again, last point, to just enjoy every moment. Every moment's precious, every moment's beautiful. You're going to look back and say, man, I did that. I just grew that tiny human in my body for 9 months, and I just gave birth, and now I'm doing this. It's pretty cool. But yeah, contractions are hard. Labor is hard. Giving birth is hard. Having a C-section is hard. Again, not my experience, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I can assume that it's hard. But treasure it, because you've got these birth stories that you're going to be sharing with your kids for years to come about how crazy their birth was, or how, you know, when you get to talk about your birth story with others, you get to share that, and it's yours and it's unique to you, and only you get to have that birth story. It's so cool. And again, you're holding your little one for the first time, you know, and you're gonna see them that small only once, and even in the first 24 hours everything changes. So just enjoy it. Enjoy how tiny and precious they are, because it does not last long. You know, they start changing within a day, so just enjoy it even though you're tired. Again, like I said about seeing those Facebook pictures about the moms holding their pictures for the first time, pure exhaustion but pure joy, and just take in all those moments, because those moments, those first moments, you're never going to get back. So just enjoy them, because they're only going to last such a short time. And again, if you want to take lots of pictures and videos, especially after you have the baby, have your support person do it, have your spouse do it. Have the nurses take pictures of your new little family and you and your new little family. I'm sure they will. And just, because again, you don't want to miss out on those moments, and you want to capture them. Of course, don't let the pictures overtake you just being in the moment. Do not. That comes second. But when you're able to, take the pictures, because those are your keepsakes. Those are the ones that I'm going to be putting in my scrapbooks later and showing to my family and showing everybody for years to come, especially my children, when I start telling them, this is what you put me through, but I love you. And you know, if you've got your mom in your life, you probably heard the stories. But and at the end of the day, remember, you did good. You did good, Mom. You did good. You carried your baby for 9 months, and you brought them into this world, even though it was hard and crazy, and maybe it didn't go as planned, or most likely didn't go as planned. But be proud of it. Enjoy it. Even though that the child probably spent 9 months in your womb, and you did all the work, and they come out looking like their dad. Hey, that's just what happens. It's okay. But they got my personality. Trust me, it's they have that personality. But you did good. You did great. Be proud of yourself, because only you get to do this, and this story is unique to you. And this is only a story that you will have for you and your children. And each child is going to be a different experience and a different scenario and a different story, and it's going to be perfect no matter how they got into this world. So congratulations. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you want any more birthing video type stuff. And just congratulations, and enjoy this life. And if you would like a 4th trimester video, please let me know. Maybe postpartum, what to expect there. So just let me know, and I will see you in the next video. God bless. Goodbye, and again, congratulations to having your little one.